Okay, guys, and we're back with another episode of the Seth Solo Side Quest. I'm Seth from the Lonely Stoner podcast, and this is episode 31 of my side quest. Now, in this episode, we're going to talk about some boxing, we're going to talk about some of the NXT stuff that sort of happened. The major news from NXT is we saw Moose make his debut in NXT. Obviously, Moose is the TNA X Division champion. To be honest, it's a really weird look seeing someone like Moose X Division champion, but it's TNA. They can do whatever they want. Samoa Joe was X Division champion at one point. X Division championship, for those who don't know, in TNA was supposed to be sort of like their equivalent of like a junior heavyweight championship or like a cruiserweight title. It's supposed to be for like the smaller guys, high flyers. But I suppose over the years, it's sort of just morphed into just a mid card title, which it is what it is. No one's really watching TNA not that much anymore. Even though nowadays, the past few years, they have shown a lot more potential and have improved their product quite a bit. To be fair, the past, I want to say, 5 or 6 years, TNA have consistently been doing pretty well in terms of product, in terms of on TV product. I don't know much about their financials. I know they're not owned by Dixie Carter anymore. Who are they owned by? They're owned by Anthem, and they were on Access TV for a bit. They were on Twitch for a bit. I think now they're on the Impact app. Which, hey, if they can make enough money to stay in business, fair enough. And now obviously they've got the deal with WWE, so that's more lucrative for them as well, giving their stars more exposure. But that sort of does bring me on to the point with Moose. I mean, Moose is coming to NXT. It looks like he's going to be feuding with that big guy Femi, which I actually do kind of like that stylistically matchup. It's two big guys. Two big athletic guys as well that can work. They're gonna put on, I hope, a good match. It's gonna be quite an intense rivalry from the looks of it. It's gonna be a lot of backstage attacks, out of nowhere attacks. They're gonna beat each other down. I'm looking forward to that. But what I don't want to see, I know this is a part of a long-term relationship with WWE and TNA, but what I don't want to see is I don't want to see TNA's bigger stars coming into NXT and just getting beaten up and just losing, because that doesn't do anything for TNA. And TNA need this partnership a lot more than NXT does. Let's have it right. Because NXT was getting big TV deals way before they were signed. They had the relationship with TNA. TNA need this relationship a lot more than NXT does. So I just hope TNA and their stars don't really get taken advantage of, because Moose is a tremendous talent, a guy who I've really wanted to see in WWE for a long time. But I've respected his reasons why he didn't want to be in WWE, because, so for those who don't know, Moose is a former NFL star. So I wouldn't say star, former NFL player. So he made a decent amount of money from his NFL career. So he doesn't necessarily need the money the same way a wrestler who gets into the indies needs to make it to WWE, because they need to get paid. Moose wasn't really in that position, which is a good position to be in, to be fair to him. Obviously, naturally, that's the sole position we'd all want to be in if we had the chance. So he started in Ring of Honor, was really built up because he's this big athletic guy, former NFL star, a lot of potential in him. Done pretty good in Ring of Honor as well. I want to say he went unbeaten or something. He was on a really good run in Ring of Honor. He then gets signed to TNA, and he's probably one of TNA's bigger stars right now, where he's been there for so long and they've just been building him up. He's been world champion before. He's able, even though his promos are a bit goofy because he's got like a speech impediment. I think he's got a lisp or something, but he's got enough aura to make up for it. To be fair to him, he has got enough aura to make up for it. So his promos are decent. His in-ring's decent, and he's a guy that's been pretty loyal to TNA as well. To be fair to him, and I think he's even said this himself, where he wanted to be a big fish in a small pond, which I completely respect, rather than being a small fish in a huge pond in WWE, which I completely respect that. So completely understand his reasons for staying with TNA all this time. Like I said, it looks like he's going to be feuding with Femi, big guy in NXT. Let's see how it goes. I'm hoping it'll be a good feud, and I think they'll be putting on some good matches. But what I wanted to talk about next was the Beterbiev v Bivol 2 card that's coming up this weekend when I'm recording this, but by the time this comes out, it'll be long after the event. But I'm going to give some predictions. I'm going to give up some predictions on how I think this fight's going to go. I'm going to talk about a couple of the fights on the card. There's a couple guys that I don't really know. I'm not that familiar with. So yeah, we'll kick it off with Zheli Zhang v Ajit Cabello for the WBC Interim Heavyweight Championship. Now for this one, I don't know who Ajit is, never heard of him before, so I'm just gonna go with Zheli Zhang. Zheli Zhang, big guy, can bang. Not a perfect boxer. Definitely has holes in his game. Has had losses before. But just because I've heard of him and I know some of the guys he's fought, know some of the guys he's faced, I'm gonna go with him over Ajit Cabello. Then we've got Virgil Ortiz Jr. v Israel Madrimov. Now, this is an interesting one because, of course, you've got Virgil Ortiz Jr., who's the current WBC World Interim Super Welterweight Champion and unbeaten, against Israel Madrimov, who just lost to Terence Crawford. And Madrimov put in a really good performance against Terence Crawford, in my opinion. Put in a really good performance, considering he was somewhat of an unknown going into that fight. I mean, some boxing fans did know him and knew that Terence Crawford wasn't going to have an easy night against him by any stretch of the imagination. But there was a large portion of the fan base that thought, another fight for Terence Crawford, another easy win. It proved it wasn't an easy win for Terence Crawford and was probably one of his most competitive fights, to be fair. It was a really competitive fight for Terence Crawford. And Madrimov, in my opinion, he won me over as a fan in that fight. Because I saw a lot of stuff that I liked from Madrimov and showed that, Crawford, he is just a man. He can't beat everyone. Even though he beat Madrimov, it was a close fight. It was competitive throughout the entire fight. Madrimov, like I said, he won me over as a fan, and I actually think Madrimov can beat Virgil Ortiz. Now, Virgil Ortiz Jr. is a fighter I've not seen loads of. I saw his last fight. Wasn't tremendously impressed. I remember he got dropped in the first round, which I think got counted as a slip, but it was a clean knockdown. That should have counted as a knockdown. He got dropped with a... It was an overhand shot. It was with the right or left, but he got dropped early in the first round. But he got straight back up. It was a bit like a flash knockdown. Got straight back up, and the referee didn't count it. But it was a clean knockdown, and that was sort of at the start of the fight. It seemed like Virgil Ortiz was trying to be sort of a slick outside counter puncher, and he's not that. And it's moments like that when you see a guy try and be something he's not, and he pays the price. He got dropped. And another referee, in another situation, that gets counted as an 8 count, a standing 8 count, as it should have, right? But then Virgil Ortiz sort of found his rhythm. He planted his feet, put his hands up, went inside, ripped shots, took shots, because he's not a slick outside counter boxer. So when you're that style of fighter, you're going to take shots. But it's a matter of how well can you take those shots. And for the most part, he took them pretty well. He then beat that guy in his last fight against some Ukrainian who I've never heard of before, but I'm sure is a very talented boxer. But Virgil Ortiz v Madrimov, I'm going for Madrimov for that fight. Then we've got Shakur Stevenson v Josh Padley for Stevenson's WBC lightweight title. Now, of course, this is changed. Shakur Stevenson did have a fight against someone else who I can't remember his name of right now. I've not got it in front of me. Shakur Stevenson, a guy who... It seems like people are sort of going cold on him now. I understand this style of fight may not be for everyone, where he largely is a volume puncher. Defensively, fundamentally, Shakur Stevenson's very solid. A very solid fundamental boxer. Does a lot of things right. He just doesn't knock guys out. He's not got huge knockout power. But in terms of the pure skill of boxing, he's very talented. And I don't think anyone can really take that away from him. And I've never heard of this Josh Padley guy. So just out of pure common sense, I've got to go with Shakur Stevenson for this one. And then we've got Daniel Dubois v Joseph Parker. This is one I've talked about a bit on a previous episode, I believe. I'm not going to go too much into it because, like I said, I've talked about it previously. I'm going to go with Daniel Dubois because Daniel Dubois, he's a big puncher, big guy. He throws punches in bunches as far as heavyweights go. And I don't think Joseph Parker is good enough defensively to stop. I don't think Joseph Parker is good enough defensively to not get hit with Daniel Dubois' big punches. Joseph Parker is a very good defensive boxer as far as heavyweights go. Defensively, very good, but he's no Usyk, he's no Tyson Fury. He's a tier below those guys, and Daniel Dubois can knock anyone out. He's got the power to knock anyone out, and especially when you're a defensive boxer, it becomes very hard to dodge 4, 5, 6 punches at once. And I know, I've been there personally, sparring against guys who throw punches in bunches, right? I'm a counter boxer myself. Guy throws one punch, easy to counter. Two punches, easy to counter. Three punches, a bit harder to counter, but it can be done. But once you get to 4, 5, 6 punches, it's very difficult to counter all those shots. Stuff is going to get through. The fourth, fifth, sixth punch, they're probably going to get through. And if you're taking those fourth, fifth, sixth punches from Daniel Dubois, you're probably going to get knocked out sooner rather than later. That's the reality. You're probably going to get knocked out, especially over the course of a 12-round fight. You're probably going to get knocked out. So I'm picking Daniel Dubois for that fight. And then we go over to the main event, Beterbiev v Bivol 2 for the undisputed light heavyweight championship. Now, this is a really interesting fight. Of course, the first fight was close. I did think Beterbiev won the first fight because he was pressuring, because he was, the ring generalship. Even though people say Bivol outboxed him, he did outbox him and was doing the cleaner work. But Beterbiev, he was pressuring. He had Bivol on the back on the back foot. He was, in a lot of ways, dictating the pace of the fight, in my opinion. I think it's interesting because both guys' game plans, I can see them being very similar. Where, although I think Beterbiev's could potentially be a bit different, because I think Beterbiev, this fight, probably will go for the knockout. Because from the last fight, I remember Beterbiev did land some big shots, and he did have Bivol worried at some points. Where not rocked, not even knocked down, nowhere near that, but he got his respect. He got his respect, and I'm sure Bivol isn't trying to feel that power again, right? And he didn't get knocked out, but you can see the change. You can see the change in sort of body language when Beterbiev landed clean on him, right? And Bivol will be like, "Damn, okay, let's chill. Let's take a moment to regroup." If he's got that feeling going into the second fight, Beterbiev could win this fight again. I'd be surprised if there's a knockout win, to be fair. I would be surprised by a knockout win, I'll be honest. But Beterbiev still has it in him to go all 12 rounds and to win this fight. Bivol, though, if Bivol, and from interviews that I've seen, Bivol isn't committed to trying to go for a knockout, which is good. A lot of guys are in these sorts of positions where you've just lost a close decision, you're like, oh, well, the only way to win this fight is I have to go for a knockout. Bivol knows he can outbox Beterbiev. Bivol knows that. For large periods of the fight, he did do that. But he didn't do it enough to win the fight, in my opinion. It wasn't clear-cut enough to give Bivol the win. If Bivol can be committed to outboxing him and not trying to knock him out, because, and this is the thing in boxing, when you try and knock someone out, you put yourself in position to also get knocked out. You have to open yourself up. Of course, you have to do enough to the opponent to open them up for the knockout. You have to also open yourself up to generate enough power to knock this guy out. If Bivol kind of steers clear of that sort of, I have to knock this guy out mentality and just stick disciplined out and continues to outbox him, which he sort of did do in the first fight. He was fairly disciplined. I think there was moments when Bivol tried to open up a bit more, and I understand why he would do that. But I think Bivol, he needs to stay disciplined in the mentality that he can outbox Beterbiev and just commit to that for 12 rounds. Bivol can outbox Beterbiev for 12 rounds. He can do it. So, I suppose I'm saying all of this just to say, I'm sort of sitting on the fence. I actually do think Beterbiev will win this fight, though. I think Bivol's a tremendous boxer, one of my favourites. But you never know. The thing is, because the first fight was so close, and I did think Beterbiev won the first fight, purely off the pressure. Off the ring generalship, putting Beterbiev on the ropes, having him on the back foot, making him run, landing big shots when he had to as well. I think Beterbiev could win this fight. It's close. I'm sitting on the fence because both guys have clear paths to victory, in my opinion. I think Beterbiev's path is probably a bit less clear, but he won in the first fight. Yeah, I'm going to go with Beterbiev to win that fight. I think Beterbiev's going to retain all the belts. And then we'll see what's next for Beterbiev. Probably a Benavidez fight. I don't think a Canelo fight would be... I don't think it'd be a Canelo fight because Canelo's coming off... At light heavyweight, his last fight at light heavyweight was a loss to Bivol. So I'd be surprised if they would give Canelo another world championship fight at light heavyweight. But again, Canelo's a guy who's such a big name in the sport. you can basically do whatever you want because whatever you do is going to make major money for everyone involved. But yeah, my pick is going to be Beterbiev. But I'll probably do another video following that event, looking back on it. I mean, by the time those videos come out, the event would be long gone by then. But I know that's the content game for you, eh? So yeah, we talked about Beterbiev v Bivol card 2. Talked about Moose making his NXT debut. What else did we talk about? Yeah, that was it. I might even make another episode today regarding some of the UFC news. Some new fights were announced, but we won't get into that now. We'll get into that for another episode. But that's been it from me. I've been Seth from the Lonely Star Podcast. This is an episode of the Seth Solo Side Quest, episode 31, and I'm out. Peace.